So today we're going to take a look at ESET Endpoint Antivirus. ESET Endpoint Antivirus is one of our products on Windows desktops. The other product is ESET Endpoint Security that we'll go over in a later video. But before we actually hop into the demo itself, a little bit of background on ESET. ESET has been around for 24 years, and ESET's claim to fame has always been high level of detection, low level of false positives, and doing so with the smallest system footprint possible. Because what ESET doesn't want is we never want users to have to compromise security for the sake of performance. And that's why we typically start demos by having both the product and task manager open to talk about a few of the protection features and specific things that we do when it comes to the resources on a machine. So out of the box, ESET on Windows desktops will go ahead and work on any AMD or Intel processor. ESET does not even have system requirements anymore. And still today, ESET fully supports Windows XP and every operating system after that, including, of course, Windows 10. And if we hop into Task Manager itself, one of the first things that we look at is the self-protection features of the antivirus. As you can see, if I go into Task Manager and try and close any process related to ESET, I get an access is denied. And lots of people do not realize how important just this one feature is. But if I have the ability to hop in and close a process in Task Manager, then viruses and malware also have that ability. So we need to make sure that we protect our antivirus not just from users, but from viruses and malware. The same thing goes if I try and disable ESET. I'll get a password prompt. This password is set by the ESET administrator. And if you don't know the password, you are unable to disable the product. You're also unable to enter the advanced setup or come into add remove programs and uninstall the product from this method either. And we go ahead and we're actually protecting all of these different avenues. Because nowadays it's not uncommon for users to be local admins on a computer. So that means if they're local admins, typically they would have the ability to remove these products. And if they're local admins, then if a virus or malware were to get on their computer, then that virus and malware would also have local admin privileges. So we need to go and do something a step above just preventing things from happening if you're not an admin. So that's where this password protection comes into. And that, once again, is set by the ESET administrator. If we hop into the actual product, what we like to stress is that all ESET processes will go ahead and have a lower processor affinity than everything else on the computer. So what that means is that if I go ahead and kick off a scan, you'll notice that ESET starts to use as much processor as currently available. So we'll get up to be using 60 and 70% of processor, even 80 and 90. But then if I go ahead and launch another application, whether it's a browser, whether it's a word processor, Outlook, what you'll notice is that ESET's processor utilization immediately goes down while something else goes up. So now your users will never have to call you and complain and say that things are running slow on their computer. And not only that, they see this ESET icon at the bottom of the screen. So we want to make sure that never happens, so we do have a lower processor and memory affinity than everything else on the machine. All ESET products come with three main forms of protection as well. Real-time file system protection is the first, web and anti-phishing protection is the second, and then email client protection is the third. And the first one we'll look at is web access protection. And web access protection is getting even more important day after day because now users are relying more and more on search engines. They're going to Google, they're going to Bing, and they're searching for everything under the sun. Every single question they have, they are searching the web crawlers for. So if they don't find it immediately on these search engines, of course, they go to more pages. Some people, when they're very determined, they might get to page 15 of the search results. And who knows what they're going to find on those pages. Most companies, what they do when it comes to web protection is they're maintaining a giant blacklist. Basically a list of websites that if you go to these websites, we know you're going to get a virus or malware transmitted to your computer. But of course, how do they know this? Well, they know this because users have already gone to those sites and they've already gotten infected. So this approach of using a blacklist only works reactively after someone's already gotten infected. And with the millions and millions of websites being added to the internet every single day, it's not a very good way to go about doing things. Because chances are your users are going to be the ones that find those websites that are not yet on the blacklist. So what ESET does is, yes, we use a blacklist, but we also have a system level driver. And that driver ties directly into the IP stack. So it gives us the ability to scan the internet traffic in real time. So if we see any sort of virus or malware anywhere on the page, even if it was in the advertisement, we'll go ahead and we'll pop up a notification or alert, and we will also sever the connection to whatever browser your users might be using. So if you actually turned off ESET alerts and notifications, the only thing your users would see is a page can't be displayed error. So in fact, this is exactly what lots of companies do, because now this won't cause them to get another help desk ticket, because this is a page that users are extremely familiar with. And what they do is they simply click back in their browser and they click the next link. And they go on their day without questioning whether it was the antivirus that actually blocked those pages from coming up at all. And because we're doing it at the system level, this works with any browser your users might be using. And because we're doing it at the system level, it's much, much faster than requiring things like browser plugins and so forth. And not only do we just scan for malware and viruses, we're also scanning for commonly exploited applications that come over the web. Things like Java, Flash, or browser exploits. If we see any of those sorts of things, we will also go ahead and sever the connection so that that is also unable to be loaded in the browser. Email client protection is the next form of protection. And email client protection we now see more as a core feature because so many people are migrating to things like Office 365 or Google Apps. And once they get there, they realize they're not happy with the level of protection they're receiving from those services. So email client protection kind of supplements that. And as emails come into your email client, we can go ahead and filter out email that has viruses or malware contained in it. We can, of course, sort the email, delete the email, and so forth. Keep in mind, even though ESET has a product that runs on Exchange servers called ESET Mail Security, what we found over the years in doing virus remediation is users like to be sneaky. So what they do is they pull in a personal email into their Outlook. They pull another business email into their Outlook. So that when someone walks by their desk while they're at work, they see them in Outlook and they think that they're doing work. So email client protection also protects users from themselves by going ahead and scanning all email that's coming into that email client. And then finally, real-time file system protection. So real-time file system protection is, of course, the most important. And real-time file system protection is going to go ahead and after you install ESET, we will first do a baseline scan. And we'll clean off all previously seen threats. We'll make sure your computer is clean. And we'll also go ahead and whitelist all of the files that we've scanned. So we will never scan those files again unless they change. All future files and all files on the machine that are read, written, accessed, or in memory, ESET's going to go ahead and ESET's going to scan those files. So no file can get onto your computer without ESET first taking a look at it. When it comes to the actual scanning, ESET uses behavioral analysis and heuristics. And we have been using those sorts of things for 24 years. And the reason why we use those sorts of things is because of this graph right here, which shows the growth of malware over the years. And what you can see is you can see that over time, typically every year, or every 12 to 16 months, the amount of malware doubles. And we're at a point now in 2016 where we see about 390,000 unique threats every single day. That's what A/B Test sees. ESET's Virus Lab sees about 300 to 350,000. But the problem with that is it's growing at such a rapid pace, and lots of AV vendors still utilize signature-based detection. So what that means is that for every single one of those 390,000 new malicious programs, you need to write a signature in order to block it. So that's a very, very reactive approach. You can't write a signature for something you've never seen before. And virus and malware creators know this. So they're just going and doing the smallest change necessary, then re-releasing it. So they might go change one line of code in their virus or one line of code in their malware, then re-release it. Now those AV vendors that are using signature-based detection need to go write an entirely new signature for it after people have gotten infected by it. So ESET, the very first thing we do is we actually do code analysis on the potential threat. And we do simple comparisons as well. And we say, how similar are you to something we saw yesterday, an hour ago, 25 years ago? And we do that to weed out all of the different threats out there that are going and doing that simple change to get past those signature-based detection. If we're not sure, we try and go deeper into the code and actually do analysis looking for malicious actions and behaviors that we've identified over the years. For instance, files shouldn't be able to delete certain registry keys, delete certain system files, tamper with ESET, and so forth, or even encrypt your files in a certain way. So if we're not sure by doing code analysis, or in lots of the cases nowadays, viruses are hiding or obfuscating their code. So we are unable to do code analysis. So in that instance, we take the potential threat and we can run it in a sandbox environment on the actual computer. We can even emulate it on real CPUs. We don't have to use virtual CPUs anymore. And of course, within that sandbox, we can also accelerate time. So in fractions of a second, we can make a decision whether to keep that potential threat quarantined or actually allow it to run on the system. If we do allow it to run on the system, if we still have a little bit of a question about it, we can actually tag that process or that file and say that if you change even a little bit, we want it to go right back into the sandbox and we don't want that change to occur on the system. We want to take a look at it again before we allow it to run on the actual system itself. The other benefit of using heuristics and behavioral analysis is, of course, update size. ESET's updates are 50 kilobytes to 150 kilobytes, and the updates typically come in 2 to 3 times a day. So at the absolute maximum, when it comes to updates, you're looking at half a megabyte of updates per computer per day. You can also go ahead and do all the things that you're familiar with, setting up update mirrors, setting up update caches, and so forth, so that computers can go there to download their updates. But at 50 kilobytes to 150 kilobytes, that's really the equivalent of someone going to Google and running a search. In fact, ESET's entire update database that lives on a computer that will block threats from today to 25 years ago is about 95 megabytes. If we go ahead and hop into the advanced setup, we have a couple other features that are just built into all ESET products. The first of which is you can enable detection of potentially unwanted applications. These are the things that typically annoy IT administrators. They hop onto a computer to help fix. And what do they notice? They notice 10 toolbars and 3 coupon printers. So if you enable this, ESET will detect, block, and remove all of those sorts of things. Potentially unsafe applications, I like to say, are perfectly fine for the IT administrator, but not fine for his user base. Things like vulnerability detection software, IP scanners, and so forth. If you enable that, we will do the same thing, detect, block, and remove those things as well. When it comes to exclusions, yes, you can put exclusions into the product, but all exclusions for Microsoft products are already set up in our product. So for instance, if you install ESET on a SQL server, we'll look to see in your registry where you installed that SQL server to, in case you didn't install it to the default location, and then we will go ahead and we will put the proper exclusions in place. All of our products also have device control. And with device control, you can put rules in place to block third-party devices from ever being plugged into computers. So you can block flash drives, CDs, DVDs, or the big thing that companies are blocking nowadays is portable devices. Because you can put rules in place to allow, block, or warn. And I could simply come in and say I want to block all Apple devices. Say I want to block all Samsung devices. Or I could get more specific and block by a specific model. So I could say Samsung Note. I could even put in serial numbers. And I could also do the blocking by Active Directory user or group, or local user, local group. I also have the ability to create multiple rules for the same item. So I could say block all portable devices except for the IT department, or except for the CEO of the company. Or the only flash drives that I want to be able to work in my environment are these specific serial numbers of flash drives that the IT department actually has. Also built into our product is called ESET Live Grid. This is basically ESET's cloud reputation system. This allows us to push detections and updates on a minute's notice rather than having to wait for the typical update cycle. So if we see a new threat is happening in Russia or Germany, instead of having your computer wait for it to actually go and update, we can push that detection directly to your computer. Whenever we do that, we of course are making sure that we are doing an exact match, not a heuristical match. But with this enabled, not only is it file reputation, we have that ability as well. And if you're concerned about privacy, you can simply turn off submitting statistics and submitting files, but of course leave Live Grid on, because then you're reaping the benefits of everyone who has it turned on and everyone who is helping to make the system better. But you're not going ahead and actively participating in sending your data. Or if you want, you can leave them both on, and then you can add exclusions of file types that you never want to be sent to us at all. And with that, this concludes the demo on ESET Endpoint Antivirus. Check out our other videos for more in-depth on other products.